Bonita Owusu balanced a broad tray of oranges on her head as she walked along the bustling roadside under the midday sun. The 12-year-old girl moved carefully, each step measured to keep the tray steady while weaving through throngs of pedestrians and the honking cars that lined a beautiful street in Accra. Despite the warm smiles she offered potential customers, her eyes carried a weight far beyond her years. Underneath her polite greetings was the constant worry she felt for her ailing mother back home. Welcome to Tales by Kwame, where every story has a heartbeat. Sit back, relax, and let the spirit of Africa speak through the power of words. Are you ready? Let the tale begin. Usually children her age were sitting in classrooms at this hour, scribbling notes and learning about the world. But Bonita's reality was starkly different. Instead of a school uniform and textbooks, she wore dusty sandals and a faded second-hand dress as she hawked ripe golden oranges to earn a few cedis. With each orange she sold, she saved every coin tightly, thinking of the medicine her sick mother needed and the food they often went without. It had been months since Bonita left school. After her mother fell seriously ill, there was no choice but for her to step in and earn what little she could. The sun beat down mercilessly, but Bonita hardly noticed her own thirst or fatigue. Her focus remained sharp, scanning the slow-moving traffic for any rolled-down window or a driver who might wave her over to purchase fruit. On a good day, she might sell enough oranges to afford a small bag of rice and her mother's pain tablets. On a bad day, she returned home with an empty stomach and worry lines etched deeper on her forehead. Still, she kept at it daily, powered by love and an unwavering determination to take care of her mother Grace. Grace Owusu was all Bonita had in the world. In their cramped one-room apartment across town, Grace lay weak on a thin mattress, fighting a persistent illness that left her feverish and coughing most days. She had once been a lively market seamstress who could sew the most vibrant dresses, but after Bonita's father passed away unexpectedly when Bonita was just a toddler, life's burdens weighed heavily on Grace. Working long hours to provide for her daughter had slowly broken down her health. Now, unable to work, Grace depended on the small income Bonita could bring from selling fruit on the street. Each morning before dawn, Bonita would quietly leave their apartment. After checking on her mother and making sure she had water and a little food, she would walk to the market to buy a basket of oranges with nearly all the money she had saved from the day before. Then she carried the heavy tray of fruit on her head and made her way to one of Accra's nicer streets, hoping to catch the business of office workers, shoppers, and drivers passing by. It was exhausting work for a child, but she did it without complaint. In her heart, she cherished a simple wish: to see her mother healthy again. For that, she would hawk oranges under the hot sun, run between cars, and endure the occasional scolding from impatient drivers or city authorities who sometimes chased street hawkers away. That afternoon, as beads of sweat formed on her brow, Bonita quietly murmured encouragement to herself. Just a few more oranges and I can buy Mama's medicine, she thought, adjusting the tray. Her stomach rumbled. She hadn't eaten since the meager porridge at dawn, but she pushed the hunger aside. If she could sell at least 20 oranges today, it would be enough for the next dose of drugs and maybe a small loaf of bread for dinner. She paused under the shade of a lonely neem tree by the roadside, taking a moment to rest her aching neck. The street, though lined with swaying palms and colorful shop fronts, blurred in the haze of heat. Cars kept whizzing by. Bonita took a deep breath and mustered a smile as a pair of women strolled past. "Sweet oranges! Please buy some sweet oranges," she called softly in English, her voice polite and hopeful. One of the women shook her head without looking, and the other offered a sympathetic smile but didn't stop. It was the usual response. Many people were too busy or simply unwilling to buy from a child hawker. Still, Bonita refused to let disappointment settle in her heart. She could not afford despair. Each rejection only steeled her resolve to try the next potential customer. She stepped back into the line of cars at the intersection as the traffic light turned red, carefully balancing her tray and raising one arm to display the bright oranges. Drivers mostly ignored her or waved her off. A few rolled up their windows. Such responses were normal, and she had learned to endure them with quiet grace. As the light stayed red, she spotted a sleek black car that had just come to a halt near her. The vehicle's windows were tinted, making it impossible to see who was inside. Normally, tinted windows meant wealthy occupants who seldom paid attention to street hawkers. But with hope against hope, Bonita approached the passenger side, lifting one orange up with her free hand. She lowered her voice to a soft, polite plea. "Good afternoon. Fine oranges for sale. Very sweet. Please, would you like some?" To her surprise, the dark-tinted window on the back seat began to hum and slide down. Bonita's heart skipped a beat whenever anyone actually responded. Each sale mattered dearly. She quickly composed herself, putting on her brightest-selling smile, though the tray's weight pressed on her neck. Inside the car, as the window rolled down fully, she came face to face with a girl about her own age. The girl inside the car wore a neat, crisp school uniform, a sky blue blouse and a navy pinafore, with her hair styled into two neat braids. She looked to be around Bonita's age, perhaps also 12 or maybe 13, but everything else about her seemed different. Where Bonita was barefoot on hot pavement, this girl sat in an air-conditioned car. Where Bonita's dress was worn and plain, the girl's uniform was clean and new. And where Bonita's eyes were tired and anxious, the stranger's eyes shone with lively curiosity and concern as they settled on the young orange seller outside her window. "Hi there," the girl in the car said with a friendly smile, speaking English with a refined accent. "Your oranges look really good. Could I have some, please?" Bonita was momentarily stunned. It was rare for someone so young, and clearly from a wealthy family, to address her so politely. She quickly nodded, sliding the heavy tray off her head and carefully steadying it in her arms. "Yes, please, they are very sweet oranges," she said softly. Her voice was shy but earnest as she picked out the best 4 oranges from the pile. "How many would you like?" The girl glanced aside at someone else in the car, perhaps a parent or driver in the front seat, and then said, "I think I'll take 4. They'll make a nice snack." She reached into a small purse at her side for money, as Bonita placed the fruits into a small plastic bag. When Bonita quoted the price for 4 oranges, the girl's delicate brows furrowed for a moment. She pulled out a few seedy notes, but then hesitated. In that pause, she looked up at Bonita intently. "I see you here often. Do you sell oranges every day?" the girl asked gently, handing over the notes. Bonita accepted the payment and offered the bag of oranges through the window. "Yes, I'm here most days," she answered, unsure why this stranger was curious about her. Usually customers didn't ask many questions beyond the price. Remembering her manners, she added softly, "Thank you for buying, ma'am." Even though the other girl was the same age, Bonita reflexively used the polite address she'd use for any customer. The girl gave a small giggle at being called ma'am. "Oh, you don't have to call me that," she said, shaking her head. "My name is Abigail. What's yours?" "Bonita," the orange seller replied after a hesitant moment. She couldn't remember the last time someone her own age had introduced themselves so openly to her. Certainly she had never spoken to a private school student before, except perhaps to call out sales pitches. "That's a pretty name, Bonita," Abigail said warmly. Her smile revealed braces on her teeth that caught the sunlight, another sign of a privileged upbringing. Abigail took the bag of oranges and set it on her lap. Then she asked, "Why aren't you in school today? It's Friday, isn't it?" At that question, Bonita bit her lip and lowered her eyes. She was not used to sharing her problems with strangers, but something about Abigail's gentle tone made her feel the girl was genuinely interested and wouldn't judge. I had to stop going to school," Bonita admitted quietly. "My mother has been very sick, and I need to work so we can buy her medicine and food. So, I sell oranges now." She ended the explanation with an apologetic shrug, as if it were something to be ashamed of. Abigail's face fell into an expression of soft pity and disbelief. "You're not in school at all?" she murmured, as though she could hardly imagine such a thing. In Abigail's world, skipping school was unheard of, let alone quitting entirely at age 12. "That's awful. I'm so sorry." Bonita quickly shook her head, mustering a faint smile to show it was all right. "It's not so bad," she said, though the weight in her voice told a different story. "I study a bit at home when I can, and I'll go back one day when my mama is better." In truth, she had only an old English textbook and a few tattered exercise books at home from her last term at school. Most days, by the time she returned exhausted in the evening, it was hard to even keep her eyes open to read. Still, she clung to hope that her schooling wasn't finished forever. Abigail was silent for a moment, her eyes still fixed on Bonita with compassion. The sounds of traffic in the city buzzed around them, but inside that small moment it felt quiet. Then, with a determined nod, Abigail reached back into her purse and took out a thick bundle of SETI notes, far more than the cost of 4 oranges. Bonita's eyes widened. She stepped back slightly in surprise. She had never seen a girl her age carry so much money casually. I can't change that much," she stammered, thinking Abigail was searching for a smaller note and had accidentally pulled out the large sum. But Abigail extended the bundle of money toward her. "No, this isn't for change," she said gently. "This is for you, for your mother." For a long second, Bonita just stared at the money in the girl's hand. The amount looked to be several hundred cedis, an unimaginable sum for her. She shook her head instinctively. I can't take that," she protested, her voice trembling. Part of her desperately wanted to accept, because she immediately thought of the life-saving treatments and groceries this money could buy. But she had been raised never to beg or take charity. "You've already bought oranges, I can't—" "Please, I want you to have it," Abigail insisted, leaning further out of the car window. Her face was earnest, almost pleading. "I want to help. Your mother shouldn't be sick without medicine, and you should be in school, not out here in the sun." She reached out and gently took Bonita's free hand, pressing the bundle of notes into it. Bonita felt the crisp notes under her fingers, and tears immediately sprang to her eyes. She was overwhelmed. No one had ever shown her such kindness, especially not a stranger, and certainly not someone her own age. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered in disbelief, her voice barely audible over the lump forming in her throat. Abigail gave her hand a small squeeze. "Because it's the right thing to do," she said simply, eyes shining with empathy. "I can't imagine how hard you're working. If I can help even a little bit, I want to." At that moment, the front passenger, who had remained quiet until now, a uniformed driver, gently cleared his throat. The traffic light had turned green, and cars behind were giving impatient honks. Abigail glanced forward and realized they had to go. She released Bonita's hand reluctantly. "I have to go now," Abigail said quickly, "but please use the money for your mum's medicine, okay? And get yourself some food too." She paused, then flashed a bright smile. "It was really nice meeting you, Bonita. I hope I'll see you again." Bonita was in a daze, clutching the bundle of money to her chest as though afraid the city breeze might snatch it away. Thank you," she stammered, her voice cracking with emotion. "Thank you so much. God bless you, Abigail. She wanted to say more, to somehow convey how this kindness meant everything, but the words choked in her throat. Before she knew it, Abigail's window was rolling up. The car pulled away slowly into the now moving traffic. Through the back windshield, Bonita saw her new friend wave. In that instant, as the distance grew, Bonita raised her free hand high and waved back fervently, tears blurring her vision. The black car with its silver trim glided away until it disappeared into the sea of vehicles on the avenue. Bonita stood on the roadside trembling, her heart pounding not from running or heat, but from this unexpected burst of hope. The noise of the city seemed to melt away for a moment as she hugged the bundle of sedis like a treasure. She had to be sure this was real, that it wasn't a dream. She counted the notes with shaky fingers and realized that Abigail had given her more money than she could earn in many weeks of hawking oranges. It was enough to buy all of her mother's prescribed drugs for a while and plenty of groceries too. Under the shade of the tree, the young girl sank to her knees briefly, overcome by gratitude and relief. Tears rolled down her cheeks freely now, tracks of dust on her face turning to mud. She whispered a prayer of thanks for the kind stranger who appeared from nowhere and for the chance to finally help her mother properly. With renewed energy, Bonita stood up and carefully tucked the money into the deepest pocket of her skirt, tying a small knot on the pocket for extra safety. She gently placed the tray of oranges back on her head, though she felt as if she were almost floating on air, and started on her way directly to the pharmacy. She didn't bother trying to sell the rest of the oranges that afternoon. For the first time in a very long time, she had enough money in her pocket to meet her immediate needs without having to exhaust herself further that day. Her mind buzzed with plans as she hurried. She would buy all the necessary medicines for her mother's treatment, and maybe even that special tonic the doctor once recommended but they could never afford. Then she would stop by the grocery stall and pick up rice, yams, and perhaps a little meat. Protein her mother badly needed to regain strength. And maybe, just maybe, with her mother's health improving, Bonita could start dreaming about going back to school sooner than she thought. That evening, anyone passing by might have seen a slim girl in a worn dress practically skipping down the dusty lane toward the slum district, balancing a half-empty tray of oranges and a bag bulging with medicines and food. The golden light of sunset spilled across the rusted tin roofs of the neighborhood as she made her way home, hope lighting her path. That evening, Bonita pushed open the flimsy wooden door of their one-room apartment, her arms full of parcels. The room was dim, lit by a single bulb that flickered whenever the voltage dropped. Grace Owusu struggled to sit up on the mattress as her daughter entered. She had been dozing and awoke with a start, worried that Bonita was coming home later than usual. "Bonita? Is that you?" Grace called weakly. Even speaking seemed to sap her strength, and her voice was hoarse from her constant cough. "Yes, Mama, it's me," Bonita replied gently. She set down the tray of unsold oranges by the door and hurried to her mother's side with the bags. "I'm sorry I'm late. But look, I brought your medicines, Mama. All of them. And food, too." Grace's eyes widened in disbelief as Bonita began pulling out item after item from the grocery bag. A full course of the prescribed tablets still sealed in their packets, a bottle of iron-rich tonic, a sack of rice, some tomatoes and dried fish, even a small packet of sugar. These were luxuries compared to what they could usually afford. The older woman's hands trembled as she reached out to touch the medicine box, as if to be sure it was real. How did you get all this?" Grace whispered. Her heart pounded with a mix of gratitude and concern. Medicine and food meant survival, but the amount that lay before her must have cost a fortune by their standards. Tears shone in Bonita's eyes again, seeing her mother's frail face light up with hope for the first time in months. She gently closed her mother's hands around the medicine. "A kind person helped us today, Mama," she explained softly. Grace's brow knit in worry. In this city, money was never free, and help often came with strings attached. She grasped her daughter's wrist. "What do you mean, Bonita? Who would give you so much money?" Anxiety crept into her voice. You didn't have to do anything dangerous, right?" "No, Mama, nothing like that," Bonita quickly assured her, realizing her mother's fears. She recounted the day's extraordinary events in a soothing tone, how a girl her own age in a nice car had bought some oranges and then, out of compassion, given her a large sum of money upon learning of their situation. Grace listened, astonished. It sounded almost like a miracle or a tale from a storybook. "She just gave you money like that? Just because she felt sorry for us?" she asked, shaking her head in wonder. "Did she say her name, this angel?" "Her name is Abigail," said Bonita, smiling a little as she remembered the girl's bright face and warm voice. "I don't know anything else about her. She just appeared and helped me." Bonita's voice quivered with emotion. "All I know is that she's kind, Mama. So kind." Grace pulled her daughter into a weak embrace, stroking her back. "God must have sent her to us," she murmured, tears in her eyes as well. "We will pray for her and her family. Such kindness, it will not go unrewarded by God." Mother and daughter held each other for a moment in the quiet of their small room, both overwhelmed, one with gratitude, the other with relief that her mother finally had what she needed, at least for now. That night, for the first time in many weeks, Bonita and her mother slept with bellies comfortably full. Grace took her medicine before bed, which eased her fever and coughing. There was even a small portion of stew left over, which they saved for the next day. Curled up on the mat beside her mother, Bonita whispered a prayer of thanks into the darkness for Abigail, wherever she was, and the mysterious ways in which help had found them. Meanwhile, across town in a grand house adorned with marble floors and sparkling chandeliers, Abigail Asare sat at the dinner table picking at her food. Her mind was far away on the events of the afternoon. She kept picturing the look on Bonita's face, the surprise and tearful gratitude, and it tugged at her heart. Her parents noticed her unusual quietness. Michael Asare, her father, a successful businessman with gentle eyes, exchanged a glance with his wife Victoria. Their daughter was usually talkative at dinner, sharing stories from school or chatting about friends. Tonight she was pensive and barely touched her favorite jollof rice. "Abby, is everything all right?" Michael asked in a kindly tone, using the nickname he had for her. He knew his daughter well. Something was clearly on her mind. Abigail looked up from her plate, realizing she had been absent-mindedly stirring the rice grains for minutes. "Daddy, Mummy, something happened today after school," she began softly. Victoria Asare arched an elegant eyebrow. She was a striking woman who carried herself with the poise of someone accustomed to luxury. "Did something upset you at school, dear?" she asked. "Not at school, Mom," Abigail said, shaking her head. She drew a breath and proceeded to recount her encounter on the way home, meeting a girl named Bonita selling oranges on the roadside, learning about her hardships and giving her some money to help. As Abigail spoke, her voice wavered with emotion. "She's only my age, but she's not in school. She works all day under the sun to take care of her sick mom. It just isn't right. No child should have to do that." Michael listened attentively, nodding slowly. He saw tears glisten in his daughter's eyes as she described the scene. Reaching across the table, he put a comforting hand over Abigail's. "You did a compassionate thing today, Abby," he said gently. "I'm proud of you for helping her." "Indeed," Victoria added, though her tone was more cautious. "It was very kind of you, Abigail. But you know there are many children on the streets. We can't help every one of them, and we have to be careful. Sometimes people might take advantage of your kindness." Abigail turned to her mother a bit surprised. "Mummy, I know we can't help everyone, but we did help someone today. And I want to do more. Bonita and her mother have nothing and no one. I can't just forget about them." She looked back at her father, her voice pleading now. "Daddy, could we help them some more? I keep thinking, what will happen to her mother when the money runs out? What if she gets worse? And Bonita really wants to go back to school, I could tell. She's smart and hardworking. It's just not fair she can't go." Michael squeezed his daughter's hand, his kind face thoughtful. He was a man with a generous spirit. After all, he quietly funded several charities and scholarships in the city. He cleared his throat. "Well, perhaps we can find them and see what more can be done. Do you know where they live?" Abigail bit her lip. "No, I don't know their address. I only know where I met her, on Ridge Avenue, near the traffic light by the post office. She might be there again tomorrow, or at least somewhere nearby selling fruit." At this, Victoria pursed her lips in disapproval. "Michael, are you seriously considering going to find some street hawker girl and her mother?" she interjected. "I mean, it's noble to want to help, but we have to be cautious. You never know what people might do. Today it's money for medicine. Tomorrow it could be something else. There are proper organizations for these things if you want to donate. I just don't think it's wise to personally get involved with strangers like that." Her words hung in the air. Abigail looked down, crestfallen that her mother viewed the situation so coldly. But Michael's expression grew firm. He respected his wife's protectiveness, but he also trusted his own judgment and sense of compassion. "This is hardly getting involved with strangers in a dangerous way, Victoria," he replied calmly. "It's an opportunity to directly change someone's life, The girl is 12, just like our Abby. She and her mother are struggling alone. I think we can manage to show a little kindness beyond just a few CDs. Victoria sighed, reaching for her glass of water. Kindness is one thing, Michael. But bringing them into our lives, I worry it might not end with just a little help. And what if people start coming to our gate every day asking for assistance once they know we helped one family? We can't save everyone. We're not inviting the whole world to our door, Michael responded, still gentle but with resolve in his voice. We're talking about helping one sick woman get back on her feet, and a bright young girl to have a future, that's all. He looked at Abigail, whose eyes were large and hopeful as she listened to her father defend the idea. And if it turns out they need more than we can give long term, I'll make sure they're connected with the right organizations or resources. But let's at least find them first and see what the situation is. Victoria pressed her lips together, realizing she was outnumbered in spirit, if not in logic. Both her husband and her daughter clearly felt strongly. And truthfully, she did feel a twinge of pity imagining a child like Abigail out on the streets. Perhaps she was simply being overly cautious. All right, she conceded quietly. You two can look for them. Just be careful, please. Abigail broke into a relieved smile. Thank you, Mum, and thank you, Daddy. She got up and wrapped her arms around her father's neck in a grateful hug, nearly causing him to chuckle into his napkin. Michael patted her back affectionately. Tomorrow is Saturday, he said. We'll drive by that area in the morning and see if we can find Bonita. That night, the Asare household settled into its usual quiet luxury, but with a mission set for the next day. And in the Owusu household, a tiny room in a crowded compound, mother and daughter slept soundly with hearts finally lighter than they had been in a long time. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the cracks in the wooden shutters of Bonita's home. She woke up early out of habit, but for once there wasn't the same weight of worry pressing down on her. She didn't have to rush out before dawn to buy oranges that day. She still had some money left from Abigail's gift even after purchasing medicine and food, enough to cover a few days of needs. She decided she would stay home to tend to her mother and maybe do some chores. It felt oddly nice not to head to the street at first light. Grace's health had already improved marginally after a night of proper medication and food. She smiled weakly at her daughter fussing over her, urging Bonita to sit and rest as well. They shared a simple breakfast of porridge, made richer than usual with a spoonful of sugar and a little powdered milk that Bonita had bought. Every bite tasted like hope. Suddenly, a car horn sounded outside the compound's gate. It was unusual for a car to come into their impoverished neighborhood's narrow lanes, especially a private car. Bonita and her mother looked at each other in surprise. Through the small window, they could see that some neighbors had stepped out, craning their necks curiously. I'll go see, Bonita said, getting up quickly. She slipped on her worn flip-flops and hurried out the door, heart inexplicably fluttering. At the gate of the compound, which was really a corrugated metal sheet swung open, a shiny, dark blue SUV was parked. It looked very out of place amid the crowded shacks and old concrete buildings. A man in a short-sleeved linen shirt and slacks stood beside it, along with a girl in a casual summer dress and a wide sun hat. It took Bonita only a moment to recognize the girl. It was Abigail. Today, without her school uniform, she looked even more like a normal kid, except for the obviously expensive cut of her clothes and her shoes that gleamed white without a speck of dust. Abigail's face lit up when she saw Bonita emerge. "Bonita!" she called, waving enthusiastically. Bonita's heart leaped with joy and surprise. She hadn't truly expected to see her benefactor again so soon. She rushed forward. "Abigail, you came back," she exclaimed, unable to keep the broad smile off her face. Abigail hurried over to meet her halfway, and the two girls met with an impulsive hug like old friends, despite having met only the day before. To Abigail, it felt natural. They had shared a meaningful moment that created a bond. To Bonita, the hug was startling but warmly welcome. It had been ages since she had a friend her own age to embrace.